So there I was, sitting in the middle of Japan, outside of a subway station, trying to use the free Wi-Fi to get in contact with this farmer that was supposed to be picking me up in front of the subway. And I was stressing. I had just arrived to Japan for the first time, and I had nothing on me other than my carry-on bag and 3 Japanese classes under my belt. When I landed in Tokyo, I was trying to figure out how to get to my hostel that I had booked. I went up to some ladies that were in the bus ticket booth, and I said, "Sakura doko desu ka?" But when they answered me, I had no idea what they said. That was bad news because that was pretty much the thing that I was best at in Japanese. After like 5-10 minutes of struggle, I finally figured out that they were telling me that I needed to ride the train. But here I was, riding into the middle of Tokyo, no idea what I was gonna do. My phone didn't work. My Japanese was worse than I expected. And all I had was an address for some random hostel. So I was sitting on the train just shaking in fear, absolutely terrified. Luckily, thanks to a nice Japanese lady who knew some English, I got off at the right spot. But the problem was, because I didn't have my SIM card, I couldn't actually use Google Maps to get me all the way to the hostel. So while I had service in the subway station, I took a screenshot of the map of how to get there. Somehow I made it to the hostel. The 15 minutes that it took me to walk there felt like 5 hours, but I made it. And now I had to figure out what I was gonna do. I had 90 days in this country and pretty much no plans. While I was sitting in the hostel, on Wi-Fi again finally, I remembered that my friend had told me about something called WWOOF, which is basically like a way that you can work on local farms and they give you a place to stay, they feed you, and you get to like live with their family and experience their culture. So I started frantically messaging farmers all over Japan because I was like, I can't survive that long in hostels, and I really want to get a true Japanese experience. Finally, one of the farmers answered and said, "Yeah, you can come over. Here's this bus station." And it wasn't in Tokyo, it was down south close to Mount Fuji in a little town called Fuefki. And so I had to travel from Tokyo all the way down there, again with a phone that didn't work. I got a SIM card, but it wasn't working properly. And so I was still relying off of just free Wi-Fi everywhere I went. You can imagine how I felt when this guy pulled up. He looked at me, he pointed, he said, "Oof," which is Japanese pronunciation for wolf. And I didn't need any other confirmation other than that. I grabbed my bag, jumped in his little K truck, and we drove over to his farm. It was incredible. I felt like I was living in a movie. You could see Mount Fuji from their peach orchard, and we would just work all day in the peach orchard, and then at night we would all eat this delicious Japanese home cooking. And after we were done eating, we'd sit around the table and just talk for hours. We talked about all kinds of things and shared all kinds of things with each other. They shared stuff with me like natto. I shared stuff with them like s'mores, and we became really close over time. This also was the first time in my life where I started to have the idea that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. In fact, it was working in those peach orchards where I had the idea for the first time. And it's really crazy that now, 8 years later, I'm living the dreams that I first came up with out in the countryside of Japan. And life just keeps getting better. Sometimes it requires you to take a big leap of faith before you can become who you're meant to be. I'm a lot further today because I went on that trip to Japan, despite not being ready, despite all the craziness, despite not properly preparing for the trip. That changed my life and turned me into the risk-taking, adventurous, open-minded person that I am today. And I've never been more fulfilled.